So let's break this down. Eli, I'm going to start with you. What are the British colonization goals? What are they trying to do here in British North America?
What I read from the summer research package was the British.
All right, show off.
The British motive for colonization was to either take land, and since they weren't very successful in Europe, I think.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So they want to take land and do what with the land? Have it, kick it, claim it, and then do what? Establish what? Cool. Establish colonies. Establish towns. Establish thriving economies. We'll get into some of these details as we go, like the idea of mercantilism and what they're really doing. But big picture, you're right. They're trying to get land, establish colonies, some joint stock companies, some royal, some religious stuff. But big picture for all of the British, whatever it is, we're talking about the regions today and on Monday, wherever they are, they're there to get land. So build off of that, Chris. How does that impact their potential relations with Native Americans? I want us to be able to draw a link between motivation and actions, because that's going to be really big to talk about colonial regional development. Go ahead.
So because, as you said, that they want to build like settlements and towns more so than trade posts or missions as the competitors, natives would respond like not only through like a cultural fusion where like they have cultural wars, but also through like aggression and like reacting in like revolt movements because of these established towns.
So you're saying that like it's not just a cultural problem, right? And this, why there's just this cultural divide of what the natives believe to do with the world and what the white Europeans do with the world, but actually a military problem. Very, very well put. Then we have both of these issues. There's cultural consequences of the natives not being able to really get their minds around what it is these white people are trying to do. Like, why are they putting up a fence? You can't own land. You can use land. You can prosper from land. You can't own land. And the British show up like, yes, this is ours now. Put up a fence. Says who? And then also actual military conflict, which we'll get into a little bit today and also again on Monday. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. So it's important that we make a link between what it is you're trying to do and what it is you do when you get there. Why are you at school today? To learn. So you are here to learn. How does that impact what you do when you get here?
I have to pay attention.
Okay. So because you came here to learn, you're going to pay attention when you get here. What if you're going to try to pay attention? I'm going to try to have you pay attention too. All right, we'll see how we do. Yeah. But what if you came here for different reasons? What if you came here to kick it? Would you pay attention right now? Yeah. Not really. Just here to chill. All right. So what it is you want to do impacts what you do when you get there. Cool. So just to I know we rushed through the end of yesterday, but I want to make sure I hit the one big point you needed to take. And that's just this Columbian exchange idea. That as soon as we begin exchanging people, and it's on your notes from yesterday's notes, don't worry about it. It was the first day. All I want to do is expose you guys to what class looked like. So don't panic. The huge decimation of native population because of disease. Diseases they're not exposed to. We're exposed to diseases and sickness all the time. We don't get sick because our body's built up an immunity to it. All right, except Josue, he's always coughing and sneezing and hacking up something. Right. Right, he may look large, like a big human, but he still has the immunity of a 9-year-old. So, but it's true, like when you first become a teacher, like first-year teachers get sick all the time because they're not used to being exposed to all these like teenage germs. I haven't missed a work day in like 4 years for sickness because I don't get sick because my body's just used to it. And I'm a superhuman freak of nature, which is okay. So at least I like to tell myself that. Yeah, fair? Cool. Just don't tell me otherwise. These natives are being exposed to diseases they've never seen before, and the effects are terrible. Incredibly detrimental to their population. They're dying in mass numbers. We see in early etchings from Native American art evidence of smallpox. And what happens from smallpox as people are dying in crazy numbers. Like I said in the very tail end of yesterday, this decrease, especially in Spanish North America, Mexico, Latin America, the Caribbean, means they don't have their workforce, this encomienda system. They got to get their workers from somewhere, hence the importation of African slaves. So when natives die of disease, Europeans begin to increase in the slave trade to replenish the labor force. It becomes a common sense solution to a problem with deeply racist roots. And it evolves into a system of chattel slavery that I'll get into as we get into British colonization shortly. But it's important that it begins as a solution to a problem that just embeds itself into American society, that you could argue the results of are still present today. Africans are more resistant to old world disease. Reason one. Second reason, they are less familiar with their surroundings, which means they're less likely to escape. One of the problems the British have in enslaving natives is the natives know the land. They're like, yeah, cool, I'll show up to work tomorrow for you. Gone. I would too. And Europeans begin using these slaves in the New World as part of this Columbian exchange, which is incredibly important. But again, it's covered at great length in world history, so I don't need to touch on it too much. It's important the exchange of food goods to Europe. Things like pineapple, tobacco, sweet potatoes. It's funny to me. Do you guys know like what culture is most associated with potatoes?
Yeah.
Who?
The Irish.
The Irish. Where are potatoes from? Latin America. But that's one effect, and we'll talk about the great Irish potato famine when all my people left an island because they couldn't grow potatoes anymore. Right? White supremacy. We don't know what potatoes are. We gotta go. Right? And then from Europe, Africa, and Asian Americans, things like onions, which now you see in a ton of Latin American food. Right? I can't have tacos without onions and cilantro on them. It's just the way it works. 100% true. Same with rice. Right? Rice is largely a Latin American staple food now. So it's just funny to me. Now the world's biggest banana plantations are in Central America. And all those things were originally not from those regions. So it's crazy when you think about the world today and how much food culture and society is changed by the Colonial Exchange, not to mention things like livestock and, of course, disease. Smallpox being the big one, but the flu doesn't kill you now. In the 1600s, the flu killed you. Measles, malaria, diphtheria, the whooping cough, which I'm convinced that you... Cool. So that's just to close up yesterday's conversation. I wanted to make sure I didn't leave you with the really need-to-knows. And today we're going to actually start focusing on actual United States American history. Here's our title. Make sure it matches the title on your notes. Hilda, can you read it for us, please, nice and loud?
Jamestown, the growth of the
Chesapeake.
and southern colonies, an identity rooted in cash crops.
Hugely important. Why you go somewhere impacts what it is you do when you get there. Why you go somewhere impacts the decisions you make, the actions you take, what it is you do when you get there. Always in life. Always. I don't go to the gym and eat a cheeseburger. Why do I go to the gym? Yeah, to work out, to burn some calories. So I show up to the gym, I have my feet up, like, oh yeah, whew, long day, I made it. My bag, get a burger out. No! I went to the gym to burn off that giant cheeseburger I had last night. Why I go somewhere impacts what I do when I get there. I also don't go to the gym and sit on my phone and look in the mirror like everybody else, but that's a different story. So this part is taking selfies, right? You know me, big selfie taker. An identity rooted in cash crops, and I'll get to this by the end of today. Here is your prompt. Ruby, can you read it first, please?
Evaluate the extent to which motivations for colonization shaped regional identity in the Chesapeake and southern colonies.
Super long and wordy, college boardy prompt. College board is just trying to mess you up. It's trying to take you off your game. How much did motivations, why they went there, shape what they did? What's my answer going to be? A little, medium, or a lot?
Depends on which one to write.
That's not true. You're going to write a lot. But yeah, it's going to be a lot. A lot of why they win impacts what they do when they get there. So we talked about Spain yesterday. Today, we're going to hit the English colonies, specifically in these two regions, which I'll put over on the map over here. The Chesapeake, which is right here where Washington, D.C. is. It's on the Chesapeake Bay. The Chesapeake colonies, you're going to put them somewhere in your notes, will be Virginia and Maryland. As well as these southern colonies, which will eventually be the Carolinas, and then North and South Carolina, and eventually Georgia. So basically everything from the middle of the country now down. And their identity, their colonial regional identity, will be largely rooted in cash crops. Why? Because they went there to get rich. So of course their identity is rooted in cash crops because that's why they went. Now do you guys kind of see what I'm saying? About what it is you do when you get there is impacted by why you went? Good. So eventually we'll kind of lump this region together into what we call the South. For today I'll differentiate, I'll delineate the Chesapeake because that's first, Jamestown, Virginia, and then eventually we're going to be able to kind of lump that all together into what will become the American slaveholding South. So we have a couple of different kinds of colonies, but they all get charters. What does this word charter mean? Take your card elsewhere. I'm trying to teach you. Jesus Christ. What does it mean to get a charter? Not private. Permission. Permission. I hate you. I just love you. I do. Actually, I hate you, Colin. You're a beautiful man. Permission. Permission. Why is this called a charter school? Who gave us permission? Obama. No. LAUSD gives us permission to operate a school in their area with their supervision to make sure that we're doing things right. Which is funny that they're going to supervise us, but hey, it's not my business. But we're in their regional footprint, so they give us a charter permission to operate a school here. Charter school. Permission. Good job. We have a couple of different kinds of colonies. The first is a corporate colony or a joint stock company, where a group of people come together, they pool their money to try to get rich. Right? I can't afford to start a colony. You can't afford to start a colony. You for sure can't afford to start a colony. You can't afford to start a colony. But together, we put enough money in, we got our corporation, we'll send all these idiots out there to go make us some money, and we're going to get rich. Except you. None of you are idiots. You're all beautiful. Jury's still out on you. So, but these colonies are largely driven to get money off of, so that the shareholders back home get rich. We'll talk a lot about corporations in period 6, the Gilded Age and industrialism, but these are the first American corporations. The second are proprietary colonies. An individual or a group gets given permission to go on their own and go start a colony up. Like Maryland. This guy named Lord Baltimore, he wants to create a place where religious freedom exists, so the king's like, yeah, go do that wild stuff in America. Go. And then royal colonies are much more similar to what happens with the Spanish, where the king has direct control over what's happening, like New Hampshire. And eventually, a lot of these ones that start as either as corporate or proprietary get taken over by the king, like Virginia, like Massachusetts. When they start acting up and getting wild, the king's like, nope, I'm going to control you guys again. But we'll get to that in a couple weeks, but then it's too late to control them. So here's a map of all the stuff we're talking about in the next couple classes, the 13 colonies. I know you heard about this in 8th grade. I'm sure you learned it in great depth. It's really stuck in your memory, right, Eli? Yeah, cool. We have what's going to be called the New England colonies. If you have trouble remembering, New England, northeast. It's the exact same, so northeast and New England. All right. We have the middle colonies, which are in the middle. You'll find that a lot of things in APUSH are really, really appropriately named. Right? Well, in a couple weeks, we're going to read some really important thoughts by John Adams on the government. And it's going to be titled John Adams' Thoughts on Government. Right? It's pretty idiot-proof, right? You'd be surprised. And then we'll have our Chesapeake / Southern colonies here. And I'll get to all this in just a little hint for you. Now, geographically, this is what it looks like. We have some coastal plains, what's called the Piedmont region, and then behind that, which kind of keeps the colonies in, is a big mountain range called the Appalachian Mountains. Over here in the map, I'll draw them like little pretty mountains for you, so you can see real nice. You ready for this? Oh, Lord. Go back. Ah, we're good. Don't nobody tell me I'm not an artist. Don't nobody tell me. I'm an artist. Yeah, right? It looks kind of like a Picasso because you can't tell what it is. We have our regions here. From a soil perspective, we have the green is the really, really good fertile soil. And sorry, it's not the greatest picture, but as it gets lighter, it's less fertile. What do you notice up here?
looks like out further than like it looks yellowish.
Yeah, so it's the least fertile soil. It's rocky soil. It's bad for farming. Are they going to farm? No. But down here where the soil's amazing, we're going to see a ton of farming. And then over here on the growing season, how long the sun stays up, how many sunny days they get. Here, we have, as you can, that's Florida. You guys know Florida is sunny. That's where orange juice comes from, right? Orange juice needs sun. So yeah, we see a ton of sun here, a lot of sun here, and way less sun up here. So it's important we understand that what the colonies are going to do, economically speaking, is also going to be shaped by where they are. So we're going to see a ton of agriculture here. We're going to see more shipping and trading out of here, and more like shipbuilding and commerce and timber and things that aren't really based on farming here. Why? Because you can't farm if your soil's rocky. So it's important we understand in your first question that geography and environment differs by region. It's sunnier and more fertile soil the further south you get, and that's going to shape what they do when they get there. Sir?
What was the industry of the Chesapeake Bay area?
We'll get there. Chesapeake, they're going to come to find gold, and then they're going to really, really struggle, and we're going to read about that in a little bit. But it's going to be eventually tobacco. Entirely. To the point where they like ruin their entire soil because they plant so much tobacco for the next 150 years. So for today's purposes, like I told you, we're going to focus Chesapeake on down. This is the Chesapeake Bay that I told you about. There's the Potomac River where Washington, D.C. is found. And here is Jamestown on the James River, named for King James. Like I told you, things are pretty self-explanatory. These guys are like, we made it. We made it on behalf of our king. What are we going to call this place? How about Jamestown? Cool. What do we call this river? James River. Do you know no other names? Is nobody else important in Great Britain except for just, so, you know, such is life. Virginia, named after the Queen. So early on, this is kind of one of those cool, crazy stories in American history. There was an attempt by the British to create a colony in Roanoke, on Roanoke Island off of the shore here. And a year and a half later, when their supply boat came to give them new supplies, they were gone. They weren't dead. They weren't buried. They were just gone. So Roanoke is the first attempt at colonization by the British in North America. They are gone. They are. I probably my own personal educated opinion is that they got taken by aliens. I'm kidding. I don't believe in aliens, guys. I have a college degree. Mr. Banks told you they were real. Excellent. Cool. Well, then you believe him? Good for you. You know how that works out for you. Now, after Roanoke, a lot of people in England were like, you know what, never mind. It's not worth it. It's not worth the trouble. We're good. But there still is interest, despite the struggle, despite the early failure, it's in your questions, that's really driven by people like Richard Highclere. Does his name look familiar? Yeah. Good, you read it in your summer homework. Yeah. And he's trying to say, like, guys, we have to keep up with Spain. We got to keep up with France. We got to keep up with the Netherlands. We can get rich. I know it's hard. The country's wild. The savages are nuts. But we got to get rich from this. So the idea is still that we can get rich. And the idea is that we need to keep up with the other countries in Europe that are colonizing. Spain, Holland, France. There is a religious element as well. As we know, as we talked about yesterday, the Spanish are spreading Catholicism. And England is, at the time, the Church of England, more of a Protestant type of nation. So there's this pissing match between Catholicism and Protestantism that exists in the world today, actually, in places like Ireland. There's anti-Spanish opinions, which will be pretty consistent throughout American history. And there's this nationalism. We're England. We're the most powerful country in the world. We can do it. So a lot of these things will actually pervade American society and culture for the next 250 years. Anti-Catholicism, especially in the 1880s and 90s and 1910s. nationalism, anti-Spanish, anti-immigrant. So a lot of these things will actually stay present in American society and culture for a long, long time. The biggest problem for colonization is money. Colonization is expensive. Queen Elizabeth refuses to spend any tax money on colonization, which means they're not going to be a royal colony. So the only option is a joint stock option, which is what I described earlier. If we all pool our money, then we can send people to colonize and make us money, get us rich. In 1606, King James gave what has become known as the London Company. That's our corporation. The London Company gets the first charter, or as Josue said, permission to establish colonies in America. So the king says, you have permission, go and colonize. Question, do we ask the natives? No, of course, we just show up and say, this is ours now. America. Here is their seal. This is 1606. Here is the King's seal. Here's the Virginia Company. Life is good. Look at the poster they have. There's this boat they're going to take. We're offering the most excellent fruits by planting in Virginia. Exciting! As all such will be affected to further the crown. We're going to get rich. Do they have any idea what they're doing? Do they have any idea what's out in front of them? Do they know anything about excellent fruits? No. But they're trying to get as many people as possible to go because it's a scary proposition. The London Company is later renamed the Virginia Company. And because, why do they send people to go there? To do what? To find wealth. To get rich. The people that sent them are expecting instant profits. I'm sorry, I'll put these boxes at the top later so you can see. They're going to expect instant profits. Hey, the four of us, we put our money in. We put our money in. So the 16 of you that are going, we want our profit quickly. How are you going to make a quick profit? What are you going to look to find? What did the Spanish find? Gold. You got to find some gold, and you got to find some gold, and you got to find some gold. You might find some gold, but you might be taking a little nap. You got to find some gold. You better find some gold. So we send all these people to get instant profits, which is not a very good idea. So 1607 is a very important year in American history. Right at the top of your notes, because there's some years you're going to have to know. The 1607 being one of them. We have two of these dates today. And they settle in what they call Jamestown along the Chesapeake Bay. It's a terrible location. It's close to swamps, it's full of disease, but these people aren't very smart. They're on a big bluff overlooking the ocean, so they can protect themselves from Spanish ships that are coming to attack them. But they have zero protection against the Native Americans who are behind them. What's your question? I love questions.
Is it still like that?
Yeah, it's still there. It's a great national park now that shows like how they actually lived and all this great stuff. It's kind of nice. Worst idea yet, though, is they have zero experience in creating settlement. They don't know what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing. They're just going to find gold and get rich. Colonists expect to become wealthy immediately, which is a bad way to live your life. Oh, I'm going to get rich. No. No, you're not. That's not quite the way the world works. And they show up, and they do nothing except look for gold. Not to mention, if you're going to get rich quick, do you bring your whole family? Who do you send? Yourself? Demographically, who's going to be there? What? Yeah, a bunch of dudes trying to get rich. They don't plant crops. They don't build society. They just show up, every man for ourselves, we're going to get rich, which is not a good way to build a society. No, in terms of society building, it's not good at all. Nobody is working for the common good. Everybody's looking out for themselves. And when that happens, you die. A ton of them starve to death. A ton of them die from disease very quickly. A ton of them die from sickness and malnutrition. Nobody has any food. It's all sorts of terrible. But why did it fail from the beginning? Because their motivation was flawed. Because they didn't plan on setting up a society. They just showed up to get rich. In 1608, after a really, really, really rough first year in which about 80 or so percent of the people died, John Smith, famous if you've seen Pocahontas. Anybody seen Pocahontas?
Yeah.
Don't lie, Chris. I know you watch Pocahontas on a regular basis. John Smith shows up and he imposes a little bit of order. Hey, you're not going to look for gold today. Go plant some freaking potatoes or something. Right? Do something other than go dig for gold. It's not working. We're all starving. But you can go look for gold because we still got to get rich. They begin establishing slightly more positive relationships with the natives, trading food, learning how to live off of the land. But there still is a ton of poor leadership and really, really, really bad winters, historically bad winters, which is not good if you haven't set up a society to keep yourself warm. In 1609 and 1610, followed by some really significant wars with the Native Americans in 1622 and 1644. So, long story short, early life in Virginia, early life in Jamestown is really terrible. Here's a cool picture, John Smith. His hair looks kind of like Hector's, but just a different color. My goal for you is to get a beard like that. No, not genetically? We'll trade. I can't grow that, but I got the beard all day. And the Powhatan tribe is one of those Native American tribes that's worth knowing because they're the most powerful Native American tribe east of the Mississippi. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to turn your page to me, please. And I have two short texts you're going to read. The first is from George Percy, who was one of the early settlers. We're talking about the first 3-4 months they're there. He's writing about what the experience is like. And then you have John Smith, the guy we just looked at. There he is, talking about what happens in these first couple years. So all you need to do is, as you write, identify in the column to the right, what are some of these struggles that they're pointing out that they're going through, and what might they do to overcome them. I'm going to give you 5 or so minutes for both, and then we'll move along to a significant Native American conflict and uprising. Anybody need a pen or a highlighter? You better hurry. Pen, highlighter, anybody? I'm penny. Highlighter? Pen.
Tyler.
Cool. Skinny or fat? I got options, right? Time's ticking. You're reading. I know. I'm gonna spend more time with Indentured service unit on Thursday of next week. I have a whole thing on like conflict. So they can be done and you just don't know what's over. I set it up a little differently this year. Last year you guys did like Chesapeake and New England together. Separate. Just Chesapeake today. New England Monday. What are the struggles that they're facing? Got about 2.5 or so minutes left. about 90 seconds left. Just real quick, what are some of the struggles they face from their own words? You know? It's important to read it from their mouth. I guess from their pen. Not speaking their pen. About 50 seconds left to wrap up. Just identifying some of these struggles to really get an appreciation for how hard it is to establish a colony from scratch, especially when you're trying to get rich. All right, so just take 30 with the person next to you, identify what are some of these struggles, what might they do about it, what kind of obstacles are they facing. Go.
So far, what I've seen is
They did, yeah. They looked at
so much that mainly what some people said that they resort to cannibalism, that they unbury the dead, and they didn't have access to clean water.
by the time you're dying of
Some
malnutrition,
people
it's
died
going to kill somebody because you're all weak and dying. Who would you eat in this country? But even this would to eat. It's freaking foreign. Yeah, of course it did. Hey, yeah, man. It's chewy. 4, 3, 2, 1. And you're not getting on the outside. So, slide off the phone. Like a brisket. There's a good question. Like, why did they just eat each other? And then that one person did eat his wife. I mean, I'm surprised nobody laughed. This line is hilarious. He's like, I've never heard of a salted white before. I was like, damn. You guys actually thinking about it? I'm like, I wonder. But things like the water. Like, you'll see this year. I drink so much water, it's going to drive you crazy. I drink like 30 of these a day. But, no, it's not salted. No, that's just your tears and you can't finish your homework. But, like not being able to drink the water, not being able to get food. Like these are some struggles. They're not dying, I heard earlier, they're not dying from disease, they're dying from malnutrition. Famine, basically. But whose fault is that? It's their fault. They showed up to get rich, and when things didn't go their way, they had no backup plan. Why you go somewhere impacts what you do when you get there. And that's going to be a big thing in a minute. And they call this time, as evidence in the text, the starving time. This time in which people are just starving. Again, things are named very appropriately in U.S. history. Man, there was this time everybody was starving. I got just the title. We'll call it the starving time. Americans are very creative. Yes, ma'am? The Native Americans did willingly help them at first because they'd never seen somebody with pale complexion before. That's why it says at the very beginning, it's so good that God had put a terror in the savage's heart because we would have all died in the weak state that we were in. I mean, but that's the point. Is they didn't sure what to make of them, how to deal with them. They helped them at first, and then at the very beginning, they're going to cohabit quite nicely. But the problem is that as Jamestown gets more successful, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Once the colony is successful, what's the next step? That is not yet. Would you want to go to the colony that sounds like this?
No.
Once it's successful, would you want to show up?
Yeah.
So we have an increase in migration and then a spreading out, and then we see the conflicts I'm going to talk about next. So in both 16, as I put here, in 1622 and 1644, we're going to see the Powhatan natives attack in great numbers. But the first time, things have been coexisting kind of nice as the colony's starting to get a little more on its feet. This is not quite the picture of what we see for Thanksgiving. This is one of the first examples of propaganda in American history. So I'm going to leave it here on the board for you. I want you and the person next to you for a minute and a half to just look and make some observations about what you see on this, not your notes, anywhere. Just take a look, because the imagery is powerful. And the way things are portrayed make a big difference. So I'm going to give you 90 seconds just for the person next to you. Make some observations of what is in this picture and what. What is in this drawing and why. Go.
Here in the corner, I see some guy like an axe or something, but he's not paying attention to what's behind him, so the guy behind him is about to stab him.
Something I noticed is that the ones who are attacking are the most of the Europeans are fighting the last city. They're not fighting back. They're seen as the
You.
Coming in and
yeah, that was tough.
Man, this is my gym goal. Slow as hell. 4 and 5. I taught 4 in grade. Age, man. My shit's my bench is small right now.
they didn't have nice physics and stuff, like they're all doing stuff like they were eating, and they're probably having like they were probably like
But it was still propaganda.
I'm about to start talking in 20 seconds.
So maybe it's to make it seem as though it wasn't the British home.
that's what they're all thinking.
So like, you're less than me. No, you're not. Every year you take regular world in the APUSH. 4 to 5 every year. That doesn't mean anything. We're all starting at the exact same level playing field. We're on the exact same place to start with. I promise. All right, Brent, you made a really good observation. I want to hear what you had to say about this.
I said that
All eyes on Brent.
I observed that natives were really brutish and like savages, as they were depicted in the writings. And, like they don't really have clothes, just like shorts.
So they're portrayed as brutish and savage. Look how swole this guy is. Man, I go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week, and I'll never look like that. What does this guy do in his free time? Just like throw around smaller humans? I don't understand. Who looks like the victim here? Yeah, the white settlers. Like, look at, and they're so outnumbered. They're going 2 to 1. They're stabbing defenseless women.
Look at the dude on the left. He's scared.
You know this guy? He's my favorite. He's like, Lord Farquhar? Lord Farquhar, here you
On the
go.
left side, he's like,
Well, look. Women, children just being attacked savagely. Oh, poor us. The British colonists were peacefully coexisting, and then one day, natives got wild and they just started stabbing people. We didn't see it coming. It was terrible. How could they be so savage? Oh no. Now I guess we gotta retaliate. That was their first mistake. It's their fault. They're the aggressors. Oh yeah, all we did was take their land and kill them with our diseases. I don't see what the big deal. Exactly. Just like the Spanish. Yes, sir.
The ships are the British, right?
No, these are canoes. Those are more natives coming.
Oh, okay.
So don't worry. The white people never lose a fair fight. It's always because they're outnumbered. Fair? So, drop down to Edward Waterhouse's depiction of this exact same thing. And what you're going to read is a lot of what's present and evident in this depiction. It's short, but, and I do my best to excerpt these things so you get the big idea without having to read 6 pages of documents. That's why I spend all my time typing. So you're going to read it. It's just 2 questions for you. It goes about halfway down the next page. How does Waterhouse place the blame on the natives? And according to him, what changes in the colonies because of this uprising? I'm going to give you the same 5 or so minutes, but I'm going to add 30 seconds, so it's a little longer. And there's 2 questions. Read, go. Now you can go. How does he describe it? How does he kind of mirror the imagery you see in the picture? Yeah, it was like the text we use. I was lecturing for an hour and a half. Now it's just about 3.5 minutes or so left. Language is important. The way he frames the attack. About 90 or so seconds left. guys. I love the focus you're putting on that reading and writing. Appreciate it. Man, our hands were so tied by being fair, and now our hands are really full. Turns out. Excellent. So I want you to focus on the second question. According to Waterhouse, what changes in the colonies as a result of this Powhatan uprising? Like, what is the big shift because of this? And then I want you to then tell me, like, how credible is this perspective? Right? That this is what actually changed things. Talk to your partner. Take a minute. What changes and how credible is that as the motivation for the change? 1 minute, go. Now,
So the thing that changed in the colonies is that now the British now have a reason to
yeah. So this is we were sitting here, right? Our hands, which were before tied with gentleness. Our hands were tied. We were being so gentle and kind. And then once they attacked us first, it's up to us now to retaliate. Yeah. All right, guys. You back up on me in 3, 2, 1, and done. Let me hear from. We talked over here. Go for it. What changed because of this?
So the conflict between natives and the British or colonists it was more tense, and yeah, more conflicts arise from that.
Okay. So go ahead. Thank you.
He said they not have the right to invade and destroy those who sought to destroy them.
Done. Perfect. Build on that. Thank you, sir. Well done.
What I put was colonists engaged in war with the natives. They started invading the lands of the natives, and they were seeking to destroy the natives who had the intentions to destroy them.
There we go. That last paragraph. Our hands, which before were tied with gentleness and fair usage. We were being so gentle and fair, our hands are now set at liberty by the treacherous violence of the savages. So that who only had as much land as we weren't wasting anything, now we're going to go invade and take over everything. Interesting. So now it all changes. Now, the white folks have permission to just take all the land they want because of one attack. So just take a second, looking at what you just read from John Smith, from Waterhouse, from Percy. There's some significant struggles and challenges. And I think it's quite clear from your reading as well as just common sense, what solutions might the colonists utilize to create success? So take a minute to answer that. It's a pretty important question. These are the challenges. What are their options going forward to become a successful colony? What might they do to ensure success? Go. Write that out, chat it out. I don't need you quiet. I see that question answered well. Potentially. All right, so let me get some solutions. I already go from Josue. Josue, what we got, brother?
For instance, pushing out.
Okay, but what'd you say?
Oh, what I said.
Yeah.
Just bringing in more people.
They need more people. If they're going to have conflicts, they're going to spread out. You need people to inhabit what's spreading out. How do you attract more people?
Well,
Success. What's that, Chris?
propaganda.
Propagandize and also make it successful. What do you got?
But a solution would be to unite with other settlements, build an army to fight it.
There are no other settlements. They're on their own. They're on an island out here. Please, thank you for the volunteer. I love it.
They'll probably either try to eliminate the threat by killing or enslaving them.
Eliminate the threat by killing or enslaving them. I dig that. Eli, what you got? What's a potential solution?
Well, I remember the reading after this happened because they were confronted by Lord, I think it was Baltimore or something like that, and then they started a second war with the natives.
Yep. But it's all going to center on success. If you can become a successful colony, you can attract more people, you can spread out, you can take more land, and then you can get more people, and then the cycle continues. And all of that's going to happen because of one thing and one thing only, and that's tobacco. Tobacco becomes, for the Jamestown colonies, what gold was supposed to be. It becomes known as black gold because it's, as a dark plant with black smoke, becomes an absolute cash cow for the Chesapeake and then later the southern colonies. John Rolfe is an interesting name. He introduces a tobacco hybrid, a unique strain of tobacco that grows incredibly well in the Chesapeake climate and soil and temperature. And within a couple of years, because of the success of tobacco, the population has boomed, their economy has boomed, and now we have a very, very successful colony. With tobacco, what do you need for tobacco to be successful? You need soil, right? You need good weather, you need water. But what else? Labor. For labor, you need people. What else do you need to farm? You need farmers, that's labor. What else do you need to farm successfully? Yeah, we got labor, we got soil, we got dirt.
Money.
Sunny. What?
Gardening
Tools, sure.
Money.
Money, sure. Who said that? Land. We need land. And what does that involve? Pushing more natives out and then more people. The solution is very important. You're going to need to know this term. That's why it's in bold. This head-right system. The head-right system is created to encourage the cultivation of more tobacco, and it's going to go hand in hand with the first forced labor system in America, which is called indentured servitude. Let me explain to you how it works. Chris is a rich guy. Feel rich today? I guess. Oh, it's so hard to be rich. Do you hear him? Rough land. Oh, I guess. The Virginia colony is going to give Chris 50 acres of land. That's a lot of land. For every single indentured servant, I'll get to that term in a minute, he brings with him to work that land. So Chris is going to hire out this guy and that girl and that girl, and don't hire that guy. He's not a good worker. And you're going to hire her and him and him and him. I don't know if he can pick up the tools, but we'll see. So the moral of the story, for every single person that Chris brings, he gets 50 acres of land. What does that encourage people to do?
More people.
Bring more people. Hence, a mass migration, and now the richest people have the most what?
Wealth.
Not wealth, that's what rich means. The most land. This leads to huge tobacco plantations. Very important term for our first semester. The plantation economy, in which each farm farms primarily one good, but as much of it as possible. Later we'll see that with cotton. Later in the school year we'll see that with wheat. Not weed, wheat. But that's a plantation farm where you're not growing stuff for yourself, you're growing stuff to sell. The tobacco economy. Now who are they bringing? Indentured servants. Now, the big reason Virginia grows in population is because of this system. Because Chris can afford to bring 10 indentured servants. Now, how many acres does he have? 500. Remember the APUSH math? Nobody can ever do it. 500 acres. Now, Chris has a ton of land, and he has 10 indentured servants to do the work. Now, this is what indentured servitude is. Very important. It's basically slavery for a time period. The poor, lower classes, struggling people in England, convicted felons, England has too many people, all those people I told you about that can't get land, can't get money, they're going to sign up for this. Where we're going to go work for Chris. For 5 years, 6 years, or 7 years, depending on the contract. We're going to work on Chris's farm, and once our contract is up, we're done, I worked for you for 5 years, or 6 years, or 7 years, depending on the contract, I get my freedom dues, which is land. So the Virginia colony, as part of the system, says, I worked my time, now I get my land. Now let me ask you, is there any good land left? Think about it. If he brings 10 people, that's 500 acres, and he brings 10 people, that's 500 acres, and he brings 10 people, and she brings 10 people, and he brings 10 people. Once I've lived through 5 years of this hard labor, all right, where's my land? I did it. You go about 16 miles over there, make a left, and there's a little corner lot for you over there. These indentured servants are forbidden to marry. And the big piece, this is all kind of a good deal. If you can't get successful in England, at least this is an option. This is a way out. I'm going to work for 5 years. It's going to suck, but I'm going to be fed. I'm going to be clothed. I'm going to be taken care of. And then when I work my time, I'm going to be free. I'm going to get rich for myself. At the very beginning of the system, only 1 in 10 of them even lived to the end of their contract. Malnutrition, overwork, Indian attacks, suicide. And I'm like, man, this is going to be a great. I'm going to work for Chris for 5 years. I'm going to get free. Boom, 3 years dead. And this is going to be a great labor system for Virginia for a short time. The problem will become once these guys start living to the end of their contract. Because then you have to give them what you promised them. Land, resources, opportunity. Am I making myself clear?
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden people are coming because people like Chris know they can get land and they're hiring indentured servants. People are coming to work. We'll read on Thursday of next week, I believe, don't quote me on that, a letter from an indentured servant named Richard Frethorn, who writes home and he's like, Mom, Dad, yada yada yada, hope you're good. You know, this shit sucks. I get fed like 3 crackers a day. I'm cold. The work is miserable. And then we started seeing cracks in this early labor system when it's not what's promised. And when you're not going to live through it anyway, what's the point of going? So that's our important early labor system. And that's why Virginia becomes successful, because of tobacco and indentured servitude. Now, 1619 is a huge year in American history. It's our second big year of the day. Not every day will have big years, but today it does. 1619 is a huge turning point in American history positively, and a huge turning point in American history negatively. I'll give you the positive first. The Virginia colonists are now 12 years in, successful enough that they create the House of Burgesses. Well, they're basically saying, we're going to create a legislative assembly. It's the first example of American democracy, where we're going to elect some people from each little town, and they're going to go to this assembly, and they're going to make decisions that impact all of us. They're going to create local taxes to pay to support their local community. They're going to oversee finances to make sure there's money in the government, and we're doing okay, and we're stable, and we're taken care of. They're going to make sure that they ensure for the common defense against native attacks, so that they're going to attract more people. They're the ones who are going to manage this colony of Virginia. So this is a huge deal, because here we are barely 12 years into American history, and we already have democracy. Big deal. Now say we're in a town. Who would we elect to go make decisions for us? Here in 119. That's my room. You're in 119 right now, currently. Should we have a House of Burgesses election? Who would you guys vote for?
You.
Me? You vote for you?
I vote for myself.
Good. See, this doesn't work anymore. Because now he votes for himself, but he votes for himself. And now all of a sudden, we're not looking out for the common good anymore. He's looking out for his good. He's looking out for his good. I'll elect Hector.
You know what? I like Caesar,
Which one's Caesar?
The middle one.
No. He looks like the APUSH mascot. We don't need that. We don't need to send our mascot to the House of Burgesses. But the moral of the story is here we are, 12 years in, and we're already creating the foundations of American democracy. 1619 is a big turning point. Because here we are, far from the King of England, and are we making decisions based on monarchy? We're making decisions based on democracy. Big turning point. However, the negative turning point, in 1619, the first African slave is bought in Jamestown as well. See, positive turning point, negative turning point. In the 17th century, so the 1600s, 17th century, 1600s, about 1,000 slaves arrived per year. Sounds like a lot, doesn't it? 1,000 slaves a year. The next century, it's 5.5 million. And by 60 years after the next century, by 1860, there are 11 million slaves who have been brought to America. I'm not a science teacher, but you want to talk about exponential growth? Look at the numbers for slavery in America. Starts very slowly, very slowly, very slowly, and then escalates at an incredible rate. So 1619 is a really big, important turning point year, positively because of the growth of democracy. And the House of Burgesses means these colonies are governing themselves. They're not asking England for what to do and how to do it. They are governing themselves. They are taxing themselves. They are regulating themselves. They are defending themselves. Positive. Negative, slavery. So big picture for Virginia, some of these key characteristics. Virginia, even though they're making a bunch of money, is still a very deadly place to live, especially if you're an indentured servant. Disease, Powhatan attacks, terrible treatment of indentured servants who are treated poorly and then cheated out of land. And the dude to lady ratio is terrible. 6 to 1. You guys got a harder time finding a girlfriend now when it's 1 to 1. It's a 6 to 1 ratio. It's a 6 to 1 ratio, 6 guys for every girl. But think about that. Doesn't that make sense? If they're there to get rich, they're not building community, they're not bringing families, they're just there for the money. So is it surprising to any of us in here that they found a way to get rich in Jamestown? No, because that's what they went there for. This is my point. There's a clear link. By 1624, James I has gotten rid of the Virginia Company, and he's created Virginia now as a royal colony, so with royal control. But they still exert, we'll go over this a little later in the semester, there's very, 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 very little control of Virginia by England. Colonists continue to make their own decisions in the House of Burgesses. Colonists still focus on tobacco, and this is a key characteristic for all of the southern colonies. They're going to lack unity. Very important. I need you guys to hear me say this again. The southern identity is rooted in every man for himself and getting rich, so there's no community, there's no unity, there's no togetherness, there's no common good. Because if he's got 500 acres, and he's got 500 acres, and he's got 500 acres, where's your nearest neighbor? 500 acres away. And that discourages unity, it discourages community. It's very, very individualistic, self-individual driven. That's going to be the South's identity because it's rooted in cash crops. Every man for himself. Get rich or literally die trying. Yeah, it's not a very good album. It was a good album when it came out. It still lumps? I don't blame Brett for that. There's 3 or 4 good hits on it. Man, 50 Cent really fell out now, huh? All it took was like 6 months.
He's relevant because for me right now.
Maryland, so now we're down in Virginia. Maryland's a little different. Maryland was originally created as a refuge, as a safety place for English Catholics. We purged Catholics from England. We say there's no more Catholicism in England. Lord Baltimore gets attraction for English Catholics, but not a lot of Catholics go. So they have a hard time with labor. Who's going to work there? And in 1632, you're going to read a text of it in a second. Very important piece of text in American history. Maryland passes their Act of Religious Toleration. It's the first paper in American history which develops what will become freedom of religion. And it's not going to be freedom of all religion, not yet, we'll get there. But the problem is, Lord Baltimore thinks rich Catholics will show up, but what I asked you yesterday, who migrates? Not rich people. They're like, oh, we'll just stay here, we're good. So Maryland becomes populated, becomes inhabited by poor Protestant farmers, some Catholics, and a bunch of also indentured servants. So Maryland's going to be like Virginia light. It's going to be a little more religious, a little more community driven, but still in general, farms, tobacco, and a little more subsistence, farming for existence, not for profit. We're going to kind of forget about Maryland for the rest of the class. When we talk Chesapeake, in general, it's going to be Virginia. Maryland's kind of the forgotten stepchild. Right. Once the Civil War comes, they don't go with the rest of the South. They stay north. Maryland's kind of just they're there. But they're